It's 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night, and where else would I be but here with you? DJ Stutz here with Little Hearts Academy and Imperfect Heroes podcast. And actually, last Tuesday I was not here with you. We took the kids to Yellowstone. It's just under an hour from our house, and we took the grandkids out there. And I thought we'd be back, but we weren't, and I didn't have any service, so apologies. Anyway. Last week, so if you want to look up the last week's episode, it's with Deborah Hollick, and we are talking about living in wow. And talk about living in wow. Here we were in Yellowstone, and I saw Old Faithful for the very first time in my whole life. I'd never been to Yellowstone, and so it was pretty exciting and a lot of wow. And it was really fun seeing the grandkids just get so enchanted and so excited about the different sights. We got to see a grizzly bear with 2 cubs at a distance. We saw a huge buffalo, like very close to our car, and a huge, I think it was an elk. It was a female, but just gorgeous. And the kids were just so entrenched. And it just really made me stop and think about how easily we take things for granted. Oh, you know what? Now we're okay. And so I was thinking about how, if we lived, like we're new to this area, right? We just moved here in March. And so, we're still in the wow of so many things that are around us, the beautiful water, the waterfalls. And, we just went last Sunday in the evening and had a little picnic with the kids at, it's called Mesa Falls. And it's just unbelievable, the sound and the rush. They were way bigger than I was expecting them to be. And yet, how long, I wondered, before we start taking these kinds of things for granted and to enjoy things the way kids do and to live in that wow. And then encourage our kids to have that amazing engagement and excitement about things and not lose it, to let them be overly excited over different things. It was so cute that we were leaving the house yesterday and there was a little teeny green grasshopper, really like that big, on our front step, and the kids were just like, oh, it's a baby grasshopper, and they were so excited, and we were like, don't touch, don't hurt it, and oh, we'll be careful, and it hopped away. And my granddaughter, I call her Iggy, her name's Ingrid, but Iggy was like, oh, it's gone, I hope it's safe. And she was so excited about this little teeny grasshopper. And I just feel like we have so many things that are around us that are so amazing, and we lose it. So anyway, it's a great episode. It's with Deborah Hollick. It's last week's episode. This week I have Fiona Valentine, and so this is episode 105, and it's called Navigating the Beautiful Chaos. And Fiona Valentine comes to us from Australia, and she is an amazing artist. Like, she's just does amazing work. And in fact, she even runs a business school for artists. So she helps them learn how to make money and how to plan things, how to market themselves, all of that kind of stuff. She does that. But she's also the author with her daughter of a book called Tiny Wings. Definitely worth the read. You can get it on Amazon. But her second child, she has 2 girls, her second child is autistic and struggled, and how they found beauty in the chaos that came with this little darling. This little darling is now in her 20s. And so they started out, in fact, her sister actually moved from a whole nother province to where they were so that they could help with this little girl. Talk about family values, right? Talk about, being connected. I was just amazed at that sister that would do so much. And so they started a homeschool preschool. So there were 5 little kids that were about the same age between the two families. Her older daughter was 2 years older, and so they did homeschool at her house or at her sister's house. They took turns doing the teaching and researching and understanding. The cousins were so amazing in helping her daughter through, some difficult times, as you can get. So autism comes in very different spectrums. You could be at the top, be totally functional, have, a lot of capabilities and some quirks, but you're still functional, right? And I don't know where Elon Musk is on the scale, but I do know that he's on the autistic scale. Certainly hasn't been a death sentence for him, right? He's only the richest man in the world. So it can happen, but as they get more and more and more involved, then more strategies have to come into place. But it was interesting that as we were talking, we realized, well, we didn't realize, we knew this all along, but we talked about this with how so many of the strategies that work for children with autism or other neurodiversities, there's a ton of them, but how those strategies really do apply to typical kids in their lives and in raising them and teaching them patience and teaching them patience and how to connect with other people, their social skills, how to be and so I want us to, as we're listening to this podcast, to not only have compassion and understanding for any children we have in our family who may be on the spectrum, and you get some great ideas on how to manage that, but you can also think, what can I learn from this for my typical child, right? Because these strategies are amazing. You just kind of kick them up when they're on the spectrum, or when there are other neurodiversities. You're going to kick them up and maybe do a little more with them, but yet the basic strategies are there for every child. Or maybe your child has a friend in school that is autistic and is struggling, and a lot of times you're going to hear, oh, so-and-so is such a problem. Oh, so-and-so got in trouble. Oh, so-and-so, blah, 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 right? And so we're going to be able to teach them compassion for those kids who are, going through life with those struggles. And this episode is fantastic for giving you some ideas on how to teach those kids, our children, our typicals, how to have that empathy, that sympathy, how to be friends with someone who's autistic, and how to move forward. One of the things that I really loved about Fiona was they were really open to alternative ideas that would help. So we talked about starting off with homeschool, and they actually did that in Australia. They don't say 5th grade, they say grade 5 or year 5. And so she finally went to a public school year 5, and she'd been homeschooled before that, and she just was struggling and having a hard time. And we talked about how some teachers are really built well for kids with these kinds of challenges, and others are not. And sometimes you don't have a choice. If you're in a public school or a private school or a charter school or whatever it is, if you've got only a certain amount of teachers and none of them are that really good fit, then you've got some decisions to make. And so you can work with them if they're open to it. And she said there were some really hard years trying to help teachers and try to work through things. And the teachers were kind of resilient. I've got enough to do, which they do. But then there were other teachers who she said were just angels sent to understand and connect. And, I had that experience for me with my son, Christian, who was super, super ADHD. Well, he still is. But some teachers really connected with him and knew exactly how to handle him. And those were blessing years, let me tell you, that they knew what to do. And he excelled greatly when he had those teachers. And then there were the years where, there were teachers who struggled and we had hard years. So you want to really keep aware of what's going on in school and with their friends, and then being supportive but at school they're going to have access, especially in the United States, and so I'm sure other places are even better than we are about having resources that are available through the schools. And so it's a hard decision to make, whether you're going to have them in that public school or not. And there's no wrong or right answer, because what's right for one family may not be right for the next family. And it goes back to my old saying, it's not one size fits all, it's one size fits one. And so, there are a ton of different combinations of things that you can do. There are a lot more choices than you ever really realize until you really start looking into that. If you're interested or you're concerned about what kind of choices, what kind of combinations are out there, you can always get a hold of me. You can email me. I'd love to do a conversation with you, and we can talk about some of the options that are out there once we can understand where your child is and what their needs are. And so you can always get a hold of me at my email, which is djstutz@littleheartsacademyusa.com. You can just text me or message me here, and I'd be glad to get back with you and maybe talk about some of those options that are available once we know where you are, what your child's needs are, and all that kind of stuff. So I would be more than happy to talk with you about that and have a conversation. And then I just want you to spread the word. Please tell your friends, and let's get the more people who listen, the more people we're able to reach. And I want to remind everyone that we are now on YouTube. So on my YouTube channel, which is Little Hearts Academy USA, if you look up that, you'll see a bunch of videos. So some are, you can tell if they're 30, 40 minutes long, they're a podcast. And it's the video of our podcast. We've just started putting those up, and so that's kind of new. And then the shorter ones are episodes of this, and so you can look up a topic and see what we were talking about on that topic and maybe get some help in that way. So, and we're also on Rumble. So Rumble is a lot like YouTube, but without all the censorship. And so we're able to talk about a lot more things. But on Rumble, the channel is Imperfect Heroes. That's all, not even the podcast. It's just Imperfect Heroes. You can find us and check it out. So I'll be putting another episode up tomorrow. And it will be I think it's the episode that I have with Fiona that we'll be putting up. But either way, something new will be up there tomorrow. And we're going to have some fun just developing that. So whether it's YouTube or Rumble, be sure to like, be sure to follow, and that's going to help us a ton as we are developing our service, our mission in serving parents. And so I hope you'll help me out with that mission. Okay, and next week I will be here. I don't have any grandkids coming, but they just left this morning. So, woohoo, fun, huh? So next week I have Leslie Holthoff, and we are talking about co-parenting. So whether we're divorced or whether we're together, we're co-parenting. And so there's some different tactics and strategies that need to take place when you're separated or divorced than when you're together. But then there's still a lot of common things that we have to do no matter how you are. It's just part of being in a relationship. And even if you're divorced, you're in a relationship because you've got these kids. So if you didn't have any kids, they can go their way and you never see them again. But when there's kids, that relationship stands for many, many years to come, hopefully. I know it's a tough one, but for that relationship to end means someone has passed on, and we don't want to advocate for that in any way. So we are going to be talking about that next week at 7 o'clock right here. I'm also at 7:30. I do a similar thing on Instagram on the Imperfect Heroes podcast. And so you can find me there as well if you would rather do that. So, but always, you've got the Rumble and you've got the YouTube. And so there's all kinds of ways to find us and to get the information out. I just want to remind you that you can now register for our 5 days of peace. It's a challenge. You'll get an email every morning about the focus for that day with 10 ideas to get you started on that. I hope you don't just use those, though. I'd love for you to develop your own. And then in the evenings, we'll do a live, much like this. There's a special page just for those who register for the challenge, and that's where that live is going to go. All right, so we'll see you next week. And until then, let's find joy in parenting. Bye-bye, guys.